Okay. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn. We are talking today about organic handling certification in a variety of ways. We're going to have two presenters and then we'll have questions at the end. But if you want to put your questions in the chat ahead of time, we'll be monitoring that and we can talk about those things at the end too if you have something on your mind. So we have Claire Davis. Should I just introduce you both? I don't know who's going first. We have Claire Davis at Oregon Till. She's a technical specialist on the education and advocacy team. And then we have Sarah Morrison, who leads the handling and processing team at the WSDA Organic Program. So I will turn it over to our first presenter. Thank you, Claire.
Totally. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, awesome. Thank you for the intro. My name is Claire Davis. I will go ahead and share my screen. I'll be talking to you guys today about the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. So if someone could let me know when my slides are visible, that would be awesome. Working on it.
Oh, there you go. They're
Sweet.
visible.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, with that, I will go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone. My name is Claire. I work on the education and advocacy team at Oregon Tilth, the organic certifier. I primarily most of my work is with the USDA funded program called the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, TOPP, which we often just shorten to TOPP. And Oregon Tilth is the lead organization for TOPP in the Northwest region, which includes Washington, Oregon, Alaska, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. So I'll be telling you a little bit more about TOPP today and what we hope to accomplish and what we've been doing. Before I took on this role with Oregon Tilth, I was a small-scale organic farmer myself in the high desert outside of Reno, Nevada, and Reno is where I'm still located. And we grew certified organic, diverse veggies and cut flowers. And yeah, I'm excited to tell you guys a bit more about TOPP. So let's go ahead and jump in. So let's go ahead and start with why TOPP came about, what prompted the creation of this program. So there's been a steadily growing demand for organic products in the US. In fact, the domestic organic market is growing at roughly 4 to 6% per year, which is about twice the speed of the overall food market. And in OTA's most recent, Organic Trade Association's most recent report, in 2025, the organic market grew almost 7%, which was really exciting. In the OTA's market report for 2024, they found that 80% of US households buy organic products of some kind, and younger generations, especially Gen Z and millennials, are demonstrating a really significant interest in high quality organic products and household goods. But what we're seeing across the board is a lack of supply of organic products grown and raised in the US. So, on the whole, as a country, we still import a majority of our organic products due to a number of reasons, like other countries having lower labor costs and more favorable climates for products like coffee and bananas, etc. And in the US, getting certified organic can feel like quite the lift for producers. So there's still a really big opportunity for domestic GDP growth in the US, and the National Organic Program and the USDA saw this discrepancy between supply and demand and created this program to grow the number of certified organic farms and certified organic acres. So those are the first two reasons. We had high demand and a lack of domestic supply. But the final reason that the program was created was because organic agriculture is shown to really support communities by increasing rural employment density, kind of fostering localized economies, and sustaining long-term agricultural viability of land. So, to put it all very, very simply, the point of the TOPP program is to lower the barrier to entry for organic certification for all of those reasons. So, the National Organic Program drove the creation of the program from the start. They split the country into 6 regions and they selected a nonprofit organic certifier to be the lead in each region. So, like I mentioned before, Oregon Tilth is the lead for the Northwest, and we are also in very regular contact with all of the other regional leads to kind of guide the direction of the program over the years. We also have some national programs that work on projects across the country, including the Organic Farmers Association and the Organic Trade Association. And we've been working very closely with ASU on quarterly reporting so we can know the true impact of the program. And then finally, each regional lead is working with over 30 partners within their own region. And these include other certifiers, agricultural education nonprofits, extension services, universities, really any organization that works with organic producers. In Washington specifically, just a handful of our major partners include the Northwest Agriculture Business Center, Tilth Alliance, Washington State University, Organic Seed Alliance, Viva Farms, Oxbow Farm and Conservation Center, and Rodale's Pacific Northwest Organic Center, and many, many more. And these partners support TOPP with outreach, technical assistance, hosting events, and much more. Okay, let's jump into what TOPP actually does for producers. So like I said before, the whole point of the program is to lower the barrier to entry for producers considering organic certification, since the process can seem daunting at times. I want to emphasize that I'm saying producers here. I know that this talk is really targeted toward handlers, so I'm very grateful that Sarah's here. TOPP was more targeted toward producing crop and livestock producers. And so anyone, either producers here or food hubs who know producers who might want help getting organic certification, definitely come our way. We can provide you some support. Um, Great. So TOPP provides a multi-layered support system at a really large scale. TOPP hosts events all around the country focused on organic production and certification. These look like conferences, webinars, field days. And then moving inward, we have technical assistance or certification assistance, and this is primarily what I do. And that is providing direct one-on-one assistance with the certification process, helping producers understand the organic regulations, what materials are allowed or prohibited, and assistance with the application process. So every day I am regularly speaking with farmers throughout the certification process, whether they're just interested and have some questions, or if they're actively applying to a certifier, or maybe even prepping for their first inspection. And then really the heart of the program is the farmer to farmer mentorship. And this is what we're really proud of. And what we do is we connect organic farmer mentors with mentees. And the mentors then provide tailored guidance on organic production and certification. And they can help with managing an organic system, developing a record keeping system, accessing organic markets, really anything. And so we try very hard to match mentees with mentors who have similar operation types and are ideally pretty close together so that they can visit each other's farms. And we have found that the mentorship program really builds farmer networks and communities and also lets producers feel a little more at ease asking questions and getting help, because sometimes producers just want to talk to other farmers, folks who get it. And then finally, one of the best parts is that all TOPP services are provided completely for free. All TOPP events are open to the public. Mentees can participate in on-demand certification assistance and the mentorship program free of charge. And the mentors in the program are compensated for their time. So it's very cool. We are very proud of it. Okay, as of the end of 2024, which I know is a little outdated at this point, but that's when we published our TOPP impact report. At that time, we had seen a really big impact just 2.5 years into the program. We had seen hundreds of mentorship pairings happening across the country. We had delivered thousands of hours of technical assistance and put on almost 1,500 events nationally, reaching thousands of different producers. So the program has done a lot of really good work getting the word out about organic and providing kind of a support structure for farmers to utilize as they navigate certification. And then some more just fun stats also pulled from our impact report. There are over 165 partners nationally working with the regional leads to put on events, provide technical assistance, and kind of facilitate those mentorship matches. We've had well over 2,000 technical assistance engages, and we've made tons of educational resources. As of right now, there are over 200 active mentors and over 300 active mentees, and these numbers shift
A little
really
bit.
regularly
Bother you?
as folks kind of like graduate from the TOPP program and get certified. More often than not, mentors can be paired with more than one mentee. And then in the Northwest specifically, I think we have about 60 active mentees right now. And then finally, there were like 1,500 events that I mentioned, and these were conferences, field days, workshops, and webinars. So that was a lot, but the program has had a pretty good impact in a pretty short amount of time, and we're very proud of it. Unfortunately, TOPP will be coming to an end at the end of 2026. So in the Northwest, we're currently working on maximizing mentorship pairings in this final year and creating long-lasting resources to kind of provide technical assistance beyond the end of the program. So any producers on the call, if you're thinking about organic certification, definitely take advantage of this program while it's around. And then briefly, because it comprises pretty much my entire role and I think it's very interesting, I wanted to share the top 3 topics that farmers usually get technical assistance with. So the first is the organic certification process, timeline, fees. This topic comes up on every single call with farmers for a really good reason. This is really where the lowering the barrier to entry part comes in for things. If you were just to Google organic certification without knowing much about it, the amount of information can easily be super overwhelming. And there are so many great resources out there, but they're scattered across dozens of different websites. So it can just be hard to cut through the noise. So having someone on the phone to just answer their biggest questions and get them oriented in the overall system of the organic industry is super helpful for producers. And then from there, we can continue to offer assistance or get them connected with a mentor. Also, I probably should have mentioned earlier, TOPP is completely certifier neutral. So we assist producers working with any certifier. Just a couple days ago, I was helping a producer with WSDA Organics application and paperwork. And luckily, it's not super hard to assist across all certifiers since the certification paperwork and process is pretty similar across us all. Okay, number 2, record keeping requirements. I'm sure you've all heard this if you haven't struggled with it yourself. Record keeping is definitely one of the most intimidating aspects of organic certification, especially for producers who haven't historically kept records or wouldn't consider themselves detail oriented. So the audit process that happens during the inspection really tends to freak folks out a little bit. Luckily, this is very well known in the industry that record keeping is quite the hurdle, so there are a ton of really great resources and templates out there. And then while the National Organic Program requires record keeping, they do not require those records to be kept in any particular format. So it's nice that they really encourage farmers to use formats and systems that work best for them, whether that's digital, paper, or a mix of both. I've spoken with farmers who have a super organized spreadsheet system, and I've spoken with farmers who tape a calendar to the barn door and take notes on that. So it just brings farmers a lot of comfort to know that they can keep records in a way that works for their operation and management style. And finally, and maybe obviously, farmers ask a lot about input materials. This is obviously a critical topic, and we treat it very carefully because if a producer accidentally applies a prohibited substance to their land, that land has to be taken out of organic certification for 3 years to ensure that those synthetic residues break down. And this 3-year timeline is the standard organic transition timeline. If someone is farming conventionally and spraying herbicides or pesticides, they have to wait 36 months from the date of the last applied prohibited input before they can sell certified organic goods. And in the Pacific Northwest specifically, there's already a pretty large sector of producers who are already organic minded or practicing organically. They're just not yet certified. And these folks definitely have an easier time with material applications since they kind of already default to using natural substances. For folks who are exploring natural inputs for the first time, I like to point them toward OMRI, the Organic Materials Review Institute. They have a really handy searchable database online of all agricultural inputs, essentially, informing producers of what's prohibited, allowed, or allowed with restrictions. And then some certifiers like WSDA Organic publish really helpful lists of approved materials as well, and we point farmers to those resources too. Okay, moving on from technical assistance, which I could talk about all day. Now I'd like to share some stories of top participants from the Northwest region, just to give you guys some insight into the real impact that we're having. So Mahale Kennedy is an organic cattle rancher in Big Timber, Montana. He's paired with 2 to 3 mentees at a time usually, and he's very passionate about helping other ranchers go organic. Cattle ranching is an area where we're seeing a real interest in organic, and there does continue to be a growing demand for organic beef. Heather Bilden is one of our mentees in Montana who's paired with Mihail, and he is helping Heather to transition over 2,000 acres to organic, which is pretty cool. Wine growing and vineyards is another crop that we've seen a really large interest in certification, particularly in Oregon. So Dan Rinke is an organic viticulture mentor. He's typically paired with 4 to 6 mentees at a time, all with different sizes of operations, and they're mosely vineyards in the Willamette Valley. And his mentorship typically looks like helping vineyards with organic management and pest management, as well as with the certification process and the paperwork. And that pest management and organic management, that's really helpful really common and helpful for mentors to assist with, especially regionally, because it's a big change for producers who've been farming conventionally to switch to all organic methods. And that's somewhere where our farmer mentors really shine because I can help walk someone through an organic system plan all day. But if a producer is really concerned about a specific pest in vineyards that's common in the southwest corner of Oregon, for instance, then the best person they could talk to is another farmer who's dealt with it before. Another really interesting industry we've been keeping an eye on is the growth of organic kelp production in Alaska. So, kelp is one of the few crops that is exported out of the state, and certification has the potential to be a real benefit for selling the crop, especially into organic livestock feed markets. So, a handful of kelp farms have gotten certified in the last couple of years, and more are currently working toward certification. It's a growing industry that's a really good fit for organic and also a very interesting challenge for the NOP and for certifiers, since the organic regulations were originally written with soil-based systems in mind. So Oregon Tilth has been working closely with these producers and the NOP to try and clarify the regulations and have them be applicable to ocean-based systems. Now I just want to focus quickly on a few participants located in Washington. So this is a top mentee, Aaron Flansburgh. He's a fifth generation farmer in Eastern Washington. He's growing grain, pulses, canola, a few other crops. He runs a split operation, which means he has both organic and conventional crops growing on the same land. He's seen some real economic benefits of organic in both the price premiums that he's getting and in kind of lessening his reliance on the volatile market that is ag inputs. And he is a really good spokesperson for organic and is planning to transition even more land to organic in the next few years. He has, I think, a few hundred acres right now that are certified. And even though he is recently certified, he still gets a lot of benefit from having a mentor to ask questions to. Andy Zylstra is a recently certified dairy producer in Onalaska, Washington. He had been witnessing kind of the slow decline of his family's farm, Misty Morning, due to increasing input costs and decreasing conventional milk prices. But with the switch to organic, he's seeing improved profits and long-term business viability, as well as just a better work-life balance. He sells his milk exclusively through Organic Valley, and Organic Valley has a really incredible support system for their dairy producers. So Andy's mentor, Maynard Maloney, has helped him figure out medical treatments for his cows as well as a good pasture rotation plan for grazing. And then Maynard Maloney, Andy's mentor, is Maloney Farms in Curtis, Washington. And he's somewhat of an organic pioneer. You can see his shirt there. He went organic before it was cool. We really love that picture of Maynard. They got certified all the way back in 2002. And Maynard really enjoys being an organic mentor in the TOPP program. For him, organic is less about the money, it's a way of life and thinking. And he thinks having an organic mentor can really save producers headaches, especially in the livestock transition process for dairies. So, like I mentioned, he's Andy's mentor, has provided him a lot of great support. And these types of mentorship relationships happen all the time in farming informally, but it's really great for TOPP to add structure to them and make sure that the mentors are compensated for their time and expertise. So, as TOPP comes to a close this year, the regional leads around the country have all been working on identifying other sources of funding to try and keep some version of this program alive. But TBD on that front, stay posted. For the rest of 2026, for any farmers out there or anyone who's interested in recommending farmers to us, we will continue to provide technical assistance until the end of the year, and we'll be making new mentorship pairings up until I think like September, October timeframe. And then a very quick plug, the TOPP website, organictransition.org, has a really great searchable resource library for producers to use if they're looking for specific information. And yeah, I think that about does it for me. So thanks for your attention. And yeah, I think we're doing Q&A at the end. So I'll pass it off to Sarah.
Thank you,
Thank
Claire.
you. I will try to keep mine just as tight so that we can have some time for questions at the end. Is everyone able to see my screen? Excellent. Yeah, so I'm glad Claire was here to cover some of those producer-centric transition resources because at my role at WSDA, I am more focused on the handling side. And so today I'm going to talk specifically about the certification process and requirements for handlers in general, and some of the specific challenges that we've seen with food hubs and learned over the past couple years. So just starting out with what is organic, with the number of producers on this call and a lot of the good information and overview Claire just gave us, I think many of us are familiar with organic production practices, and that those crops and livestock are produced using cultural and biological and mechanical practices that really foster the cycling of resources. Um, and and so I think a lot of us have that kind of spirit of organic ingrained in us. But one thing that's important to remember on the handling side is that organic is also a federally regulated labeling term. And so there is no difference between calling something certified organic or just organic or organically grown. If it is an agricultural product and it is sold in the US with any kind of organic claim, then it is regulated under both OFPA, the Organic Foods Production Act, as well as specifically the USDA organic regulations. And so that is kind of what the certification process helps enshrine. And so when it comes to the organic industry, we have this kind of pyramid where we've got lots and lots of farms and processors and handlers, those businesses and individuals actually adopting organic practices and describing how they are performing those organic practices in their organic system plans. In the US, there's like 28,000 certified operations. Here in Washington State, we have just over 1,200. And then there's a tier of accredited certifiers that oversees those organic system plans and inspects and certifies each one of those operations. The accredited certifier community, of which WSDA Organic Program is a member of that, as well as Oregon TILT. They do certification work in addition to their outreach work. So there's only about 80 of us accredited certifiers that are working with all of those many thousands of operations. And then at the top of this pyramid is the USDA National Organic Program. And they are a team of about 30 dedicated individuals that both audit us certifiers and do that accreditation process, holds us accountable, but they also enforce the regulation. Ultimately, they are the enforcement arm for both certified operations as well as the uncertified businesses that might also be acting in this marketplace. So, like I said, WSDA Organic Program is a USDA accredited certifier, and we are the only USDA accredited certifier that is actually based in Washington State. But we're not the only one operating in Washington State. Last time I checked, I think there are about 19 different certifiers. There's only a small group of us, like Oregon TILT and CCOF. And like I said, WSDA certifies the vast majority of the operations here in our state that really have, quite a few operations that we're working with. And then there's some kind of little one-offs here and there. But you are welcome to shop around. All of our overall processes and the actual rule and requirements are the same. And so we are certifying to the same federal regulation. But there will be variations in things like timelines and the actual forms themselves that you would use to complete that process, as well as costs. And there might be different options for like bundling services and those kinds of things. So we are not the only game in town, but I think we're a pretty good one because we're also your resource center for any stakeholder in Washington, consumers, producers, handlers, you name it. We're happy to talk through those organic requirements and point you to the best resources. So we do encourage you to reach out and seek that technical assistance early and often. And then lastly, as a certifier, we are doing those on-site inspections. And we do really emphasize our in-house inspectors. So we think that especially our audit services are top tier. So then food hubs, in contrast, are those organic handlers. Here I've got the definition of handle, which in general is just to sell, process, or package an agricultural product. So right off the bat, you can tell that food hubs are generally involved in at least selling the agricultural product, if not also potentially processing or packaging it. So already we see that they are handlers. Recently, this definition has been updated to include all these other verbs to help clarify all the different types of activities that could fall under that handling term. And we also recently narrowed the exemptions from certification. So if you fall under this handling definition, you are an organic handler and you must be certified in order to make organic claims, unless you fall under one of these very narrow exemptions. And so that's things like making less than $5,000 in gross annual organic sales. That's a very, very small amount. And so very few people qualify for that. And then retail food establishments is a big one. And I think there is a lot of overlap there with food hubs. So that can be something that can be challenging to navigate. But in general, we see that food hubs are really helping to facilitate wholesale trade. And so that would not fall under this retailer exemption that is more applicable to your traditional grocery store. Or in a processing context, it could also be applied to like a deli or a restaurant that is serving those like sort of processed multi-ingredient type foods to customers. And then there's also exemptions depending on the packaging of the product. So if a handler is only involved in the storage and that kind of physical handling of products that are already sealed and tamper evident, then they don't have to be certified. But if they're actually selling that product, buying, selling, brokering, trading, any type of financial activity related to that product, then not only does the product need to be sealed, tamper evident, but they also have to be labeled for that final retail sale already. So again, these are very narrow exemptions. And in general, I haven't seen a food hub that falls neatly under one of these. So these exemptions are relatively new. So if you're thinking, I feel like something's changed in recent years, it did. That definition of handling and the exemptions outlined in section 101 of the rule did change just in March of 2024. We have this lovely fact sheet that helps people understand whether or not they need to be certified. And then that certification process, again, is based in the federal rule. So it should look the same regardless of which certifier you choose to work with. But it will probably just involve some different forms. And the first step, regardless of certifier, regardless of scope of certification, is that that business, whether they're a producer or handler, needs to adopt organic practices. And so for producers, we understand that that requires a 36-month transition of their land. There's not that same kind of timeline for handlers or processors, but we do want to see that you've started thinking about what those organic handling requirements are and how you can build your systems in order to meet those requirements ahead of time, because then we're going to ask you to detail how you are meeting those requirements in your organic system plan. That's part of your application packet that you would submit to the certifier. And everything is going to revolve around that organic system plan going forward. So the second step here is the certifier reviews everything that you submitted, and they're going to provide you feedback on the practices that are outlined in that OSP. And then you have an inspection. So an inspector will come out to your place of business and verify that that organic system plan is being implemented. They will do that through observations of what they can just see happening on site, interview with your staff that's actually responsible for carrying out those activities day to day, as well as a review of your records. The inspector will also kind of test those systems. So they'll evaluate whether or not your records are sufficient by doing both a traceback and a mass balance audit exercise to test that system. And then finally, the certifier reviews that entire packet of information, both building off of the organic system plan reviews that were done previously and any updates and revisions that have come in since, as well as the inspector's report and their findings. The inspector is not responsible for making that certification decision. It does go to the reviewer to make that call. And so all these white boxes here leading downward, that process for a new applicant typically takes about 3.5 months to complete. It kind of breaks down to like 30 days of application review, a couple weeks to organize that inspection, schedule that inspection, do that inspection, write the report, and a 45-day review timeline on the report and everything else that's come in since. So it's best to get started early and kind of be working towards that. And then once you are certified, these green boxes show that now you have to maintain that certification. And so part of it is an annual renewal process because you will need to have that annual inspection where an inspector comes back out to make sure that things are still in place and collect any updates if updates are needed. But there's also a lot of ongoing communication with the certifier throughout the year. We're adding additional new products, asking questions, making changes to your plan. There's often more ways than one to be compliant. And so you might decide to change your business practices, and that will still be compliant with the rules, but you need to update that organic system plan to match what you're going to be doing. So it's an ongoing process. And again, it all really revolves around that organic system plan that describes how you're meeting the organic handling requirements. So let's look at what those organic handling requirements really are. These are housed in the Code of Federal Regulations, which has like a great interactive website. This is just showing you the table of contents here. But you can see there's quite a few different sections, and especially the handling requirements, you kind of have to jump around a lot with, the record keeping requirements are in section 103. And then you go to the 270s for all the different processing and handling requirements. One of the big ones for food hubs is subpart D, labels and basically describing all the different types of organic claims and how you can make them compliantly. And so instead of taking you through a bunch of legalese, I figured we'd really boil it down to these are the 4 key points for organic handlers. You have to start with an organic product. That is a given. If it wasn't produced by an organic farm in compliance with the organic regulations, then there's nothing you can do as a handler to turn that product organic. So you have to start with an organic product first, and then you need to protect the organic integrity of that product while it's in your control. This is basically like, don't mess it up. And then you need to market and label it in accordance with the regulation. And then finally, you have to keep records that demonstrate that you've done those 3 things. And that's, in order to demonstrate compliance during those annual inspections to show that your systems are in place and they are working to ensure that everything you sell with an organic claim, came from an organic supplier and was not compromised along the way. So looking at this a little more closely, starting with an organic product, we need to see an audit trail that shows that chain of custody from your supplier and that your supplier is representing this particular product to you on this particular day with an organic claim, and that supplier is certified to make that organic claim on that specific product. As far as not messing it up and protecting the organic integrity of it while it's under your control, a big part of that is preventing contamination from prohibited materials. Commonly in like storage scenarios, the biggest concern here would be like pest control materials. But also if you're using any like ripening agents or maybe produce washes, sanitizers, and direct contact with food, then those types of like post-harvest materials can also be a risk. And so you'll want to have strategies in place to make sure that you're only using allowed materials on the organic products. You also have to prevent commingling, and that's defined as physical contact with non-organic agricultural products. And so that's just like really keeping your organic and your non-organic products segregated. And then if you have a facility, then you are required to follow the facility pest management practices outlined in the regulations. It is a hierarchy very similar to what's on the producer side, but it is a slightly different standard. And so making sure that you've got all of those practices in place for your facility management. When it comes to marketing and labeling compliantly, understanding the different claim categories is really important. I think a lot of us are very familiar with organic, and that applies to raw agricultural products as well as processed products that are at least 95% organic content. And any of that non-organic content, non-organic processing aids, they come from a very exclusive list of allowed materials. Well, there are also these other 2 claim categories that we don't talk about a lot and people aren't as familiar with. 100% organic, that's going to be for your raw agricultural products. And then it could also be for processed products that do not use any of those allowed non-organic materials. And then the made with claim category is probably the one that people are the least familiar with, because it's often misunderstood as like an uncertified category, and that's not the case. If you are calling a wine made with organic grapes, then that means that that product is not only certified by a USDA accredited certifier, but that it complies with all of the regulations, except for the fact that it actually has added sulfites, because there is that, it kind of downgrades it to this lesser claim category of made with organic grapes. There's also additional allowances in this category for products to not only have a lower threshold of organic content, so it's only 70% organic content as a minimum, but it also opens the door to using non-organic agricultural ingredients that would not be allowed in an organic product. And so this kind of lesser claim category doesn't have access to the USDA organic seal. And so as a food hub, it's really important to be paying attention to that, to make sure that you're not marketing products in this particular category with that USDA organic seal. And then there's also different requirements depending on the purpose of the package that we're talking about. There are specific requirements for retail packages, and then different requirements for containers that are used for shipping and storage purposes. And so paying attention to those, especially if you are the one applying labels. And so for that, we'd be looking at any packaging that you're doing, as well as like the containers that might be used for specific orders that you're packing for your customers. And then when it comes to these records, certified operations are required to maintain records for at least 5 years. You don't have to have 5 years of records coming in to your new application or anything like that. You just have to start keeping those records going forward. And then all of these records have to be available for your on-site inspections and readily auditable, where they're actually linking together, and it's like part of this overall system that we can actually verify compliance with. That's a big part of why we do those audit exercises at inspection, and make sure that these records are actually meaningful and working together to demonstrate compliance. And so that record keeping system needs to link all the way from the last certified operation that provided the organic product to you, through all of your handling, and then outgoing to your customer. All right. We're going to be way over time. So should I just keep going, or should we open the door to questions?
Doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat, so
Okay.
I think we're fine.
All right. So we are limited on time today, and so I don't have time to go through every single one of these and talk about the challenges for each one and how you might address them in your Food Hub organic system plan. But supplier verification and starting with that organic product is the most critical step for all handlers. And because for food hubs, just the way that most of these businesses are set up, you have kind of steps 1 and 3 here, both that supplier verification piece as well as the marketing of it kind of happening instantaneously in many cases. And so that can be a real challenge for food hubs to keep those verifications ahead of your sales. And so if we look at this more closely, here's an example of, and this is a compliant one. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea here. This is a compliant certified product, but this is kind of what it looks like when it's in that online store for a food hub. And as a handler, the food hub is ultimately responsible for making sure that these are compliant claims and preventing uncertified, non-compliant organic claims from being made on their website. And my understanding is a lot of people are using this local foods marketplace software, which is super streamlined and has a great user interface for your customers. But it's so streamlined that it doesn't have a control step for the food hub to really approve these claims before those product listings go live. And so oftentimes you have producers working directly in this system and selecting, which organic claims they're going to make on this product that's now available. And there's not a really built-in way for the food hub to be making those verifications in real time before, that sale is made to the customer and, it starts heading down that road to distribution. And so food hubs really need to have a system in place that kind of encompasses all aspects of that. First, communicating the requirements to your producers. If your producers are going to be working directly in that system, then your expectations need to be really clear from the beginning. Obviously, you still need to have some systems in place to do the verification steps yourself, but then also some accountability of like if there are issues repeatedly that you're taking away that access from a particular producer that is continuing to make like unqualified organic claims on your store. And so what that kind of looks like is if you have like member or producer agreements, some type of process in place for kind of onboarding folks, then it's good to include these types of organic requirements and making sure that it's really clear to them that, you know, there is no difference between organically grown and certified organic. You need to have an organic certificate in hand that lists that organic product before you select any organic claims as you're putting this up on the storefront. Even if you don't have those kinds of like member agreements in place, there could be some other type of like user setup and training just on using that system that you could kind of insert those types of topics into that training. And then really explaining the consequences to your producers about how making non-compliant organic claims is going to jeopardize your certification as a food hub, which would in turn jeopardize everybody else's access to that organic market. And so I think that's the piece that is so important, where like a lot of times it's just a misclick or, you know, a misunderstanding of what those certification requirements really are. But those kinds of mistakes really jeopardize the folks that are, you know, playing by the rules, so to speak, and trying to get their certified organic product to market with that full organic claim. All right, so when it comes to verifying, be proactive. The more you can do kind of ahead of time as you're doing those onboarding, you kind of know what certain producers are expecting to have this season and trying to sort of run through the expected list before, you know, it's harvest time and things are coming online. The more you can do of that, the better. And then once you kind of have that foundation set of everything that you've already verified, then identifying on that like weekly basis or however often those orders are being placed, you kind of have a built-in system to then identify anything else, like a new combination of a supplier and a product that needs verification because it wasn't part of that earlier sort of broader verification of all sorts of products. And then there also needs to be a step to revisit anything that you have previously verified. We expect this to be done at least annually because things do change. Producers may not be certified for the same crop year after year, but also a producer might lose their certification or change certifiers. And so making sure that at least annually you are going back to those previously verified combinations of suppliers and products and verifying that they are still certified. And then if there's any issues with that verification step and it's not a certified organic product, then you have to have those practice or like some sort of system and control in place to remove all the organic claims from that product before it becomes that like uncorrectable violation where the product has already gone out to the customer with that organic claim on it. And so making sure that you have this overall system is going to be really critical as you just set it up, because it's really hard to go back and try to verify every single thing on a weekly basis. But we also don't want to get so like siloed into just verifying the new things that we don't account for any changes that might happen to the previously verified information. All right, just want to go through some tools that are available to everyone in order to do these verifications. The Organic Integrity Database includes all certified organic operations. all across the world. It's a great tool. Certifiers are required to keep it updated within 3 business days, so it's nearly real-time information for you. The one thing to remember about this is that as a certified operation, you need to have records that demonstrate that the supplier was certified back when you acquired that product. And so making sure that you're keeping a record of like checking the database is really important. And so the best way to do that is there's this little button right here that says export to PDF, and that will export this particular supplier's profile with their list of products to a PDF that then you can save. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. One thing to watch out for in this database is those claim categories like we talked about with the made with organic claims. It's not super clear from this view or even from the PDF view which of these products are certified to which claim categories. But if you click on that little product details tab right there, it'll take you to a page that looks like this, where you can then see this particular one of these mini kombucha products is only certified to that made with claim. And so that's going to be a really key thing for you to look out for when it comes to those processed products. And then in some cases, you might need to obtain the actual addendum to the certificate for certain details. That's just going to come in to play depending on like how much detail a specific certifier is reporting to the OID. It's also really important if you're selling into Canada because there's not a field in the OID for us to verify that a product is certified in compliance with the Canadian equivalency arrangement. And so that's something that you'll need the actual certifier issued addendum for. And then here's back to our beets from Ralph's greenhouse. Here we have that PDF exported from the OID of Ralph's profile. And I know it's tiny, but I just want to kind of point out a few specific sections here that are important for us to be looking at. So in this green box here, we can see the operation name. The operation status is certified. That's what we want to see. And the status effective date is April of 2002. And the certifier there is WSDA. And so this tells me that Ralph's Greenhouse LLC has been continuously certified by WSDA since 2002. I can also see that they have beets on their certificate, specifically red beets. And then up at the top here in red, it says Operation Profile updated on March 19th, 2026. What that tells me is that that's the last time WSDA sort of refreshed this organic profile. And so all of this detail is current as of March 19th. Because certifiers are required to keep it updated within 3 business days, I can assume that there have been no further changes. And then down at the bottom here, you have a printed on date, which will tell your inspector, you know, the date that you were actually looking at this and verifying this information. It also has this hyperlink here and a QR code that you could click on or scan at any time that will take you right back to that live website to double check that operation's current status. And then here's an example of what our WSDA certificate addendum looks like. We call these organic certification summaries. Some people just call them addendums. Some people call them like organic system plan summaries. But this has similar information. You can see there's a lot more detail about the certified sites. Here we can see their red beets again. You can see that all of their beets are actually Canadian equivalent. So that's an added detail that you wouldn't have had from the OID. And on the certifier addendum, there should be an issue date that shows when this particular addendum was issued. And again, there is a hyperlink that would take you to that OID profile to double check the current status of the operation. So,
Sarah,
yes.
this is so helpful. I'm gonna go use all this information soon for all of my producers, but I just want to be cognizant of everybody's time. And then we only have a couple more minutes. Is there like a wrap up you could do really
Yes.
quick? Okay, thanks.
This is the slide that I wanted to end on because it has more links to our resources as well as the application forms if you are a new handler interested in getting handler certification. Then these are the links that you would need for that. And I also have my contact information here. We work out of our main inbox and kind of a phone tree system. So you can reach me at those that email address and that phone number, but you would also be able to contact any like the first available handling reviewer so that we can get you a quick answer to any of your questions.
Amazing. Thank you. This is such good information. We could talk about this for a long time. We are gonna be right up to the end. Thank you, Sarah and Claire. And I just want to say we can take this discussion and any questions that have come up with the food hubs to our Washington Food Hub Network meeting, which the next one is coming right up next week on the 6th. So let's kind of push questions and another discussion over to that. And then maybe we will have some questions to reach out with
Sure.
to Sarah and Claire afterwards. But yeah, I think this is all really helpful, and I appreciate you sharing with us.
Absolutely.
Emily is going to put the recording for this up as well. That will be, where will that recording be? Will it be on the Washington Food Hub Network or on the NABC site?
I usually put the recording up on our YouTube, and then I will send a link to our YouTube recording and any resources mentioned here in that email. So it'll be easily accessible. As long as you registered, you'll get that email. And then I also just put my email in the chat. So if you have any questions that you'd like me to take or forward on to Claire or Sarah, I'm happy to facilitate that as well. So reach out. And as Shannon said, Sarah, I think it would be really cool maybe to have you come to one of our Washington Food Hub Network meetings, like those that are just for food hubs, and also maybe even a workshop. I don't know, like give you some more time because it feels like there's a lot to learn.
Definitely. I think that would be awesome. I feel more confident being walked through how to look up that organic certification, even
Yeah.
though that's not something I'm going to ask for. I think that was very helpful in making it possible to do some of these things easier. So, yeah, that might be super helpful. All right, thank you everyone for lunching and learning with us.
Thank you, and thank